Hi guys, and welcome back to Pass and Move. For today's episode, we are still in Germany with the third best, or at least the predicted to be third best team, Leverkusen. Of course, a very exciting team. Everyone knows how they were performing earlier on. I'm actually not too sure where they are right now, but the point is, you've got a team that expect Champions League. I think that's what the board would be expecting as well. And we'll try and do the best. Apparently you just need to qualify for Euro Cup, so kind of low expectations. I think it seems to make sense. Well, not seems to make sense, but rather it's a good thing that you've got low expectations and a good enough squad to beat those expectations. So anyways, we'll be doing a tactics and team guide with this German team. And as you can tell, I haven't set anything up at all. And like I always say, the reason is that I like to go through things step by step with you guys, just as if I would be, starting a career with Leverkusen. Just what I do basically, and my opinion on how things should go, how you should set your team up, and whatnot. So one of the first things I do is have a look at the staff, sort out my staff. Who can I trust? Who can I not? And one of the things, of course, that I need to be able to trust is my staff's judgment of ability. Of course, we technically can't really actually judge a player's ability. That's just down to the game. Apparently, I've got judgment ability of 20, but really that's can't really be true, can it? So yeah, we've got the head of youth development who seems to be the best at that, Helmut Jungheim. So we'll be trusting his opinion. German, looks like he's a really good head of youth development. I would suggest holding on to him. Next thing I do, a couple of the next things I do is actually have a look at my squad quite generally, and of course the tactics itself. So we'll skip the tactics creator. I guess the default formations are 4-4-2. But let's see what my assistant thinks. My assistant recommends the 4-4-2 as well. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating two tactics, a possession-based one and a direct style of play tactic as well. That way you've got two options on whichever way you want to take your team to. It's just a suggestion, and I will always advise you on which one suits the team a bit more based on the squad that you've got. It's just because to give you more options. Basically, you definitely don't. Or definitely shouldn't train your team for both tactics. You need to stick to one style of play. You can't really have both because you buy players for specific styles of play and whatnot. But anyways, so let's have a look at the squad. We'll sort them out in just a second, but let's see how many players we've got. Looks like you've got quite a big squad, but a lot of them are out on loan. You've got 35 players. Like I always mention, you should have a squad of 22 players. The reason for that, for me anyways, is to have a starting 11 of leading, star, or even world-class players of your division, and then a backup 11 of players with potential. So your first 11 are experienced players with ability, are ready-made. They will destroy other teams for you. And then you've got backup players of youngsters who are willing to learn their trade, not too bothered about their minutes too much, and just have all the potential in the world to become those leading star or world-class players. And that way you've got a nice little balance there. That's just what I like to do. Other people would think otherwise. But anyways, just for the sake of this video, we're going to move everyone who's been loaned out to the under-19s. They're on loan, so they never mind and never actually send you any asking for a conversation type of thing. And then I think that takes us down a couple, so that's a good thing. We've got 27 players, not bad, but I'm pretty sure a lot of these don't actually deserve to be here. So one of the other things I do is quickly have a look at the under-19 squad. There's no reserve squad in this I guess Leverkusen side, and Atakan Akyayanak seems to be the player with the most ability. So we'll have a quick look at our head of youth development's judgment, and apparently he's not ready for first division, so there's no need to move him up, and the likelihood is all the other youngsters aren't ready for first division, so at least that's one thing out of the way. Now the next thing to do is check who's in the first team squad who's not ready to be in the first team squad. So Ole here is only ready for the third division. Let's just get rid of him. for the sake of the video, of course, you should probably send him out on loan. He's 19, so he won't really play in the under-19s, I think, unless his birthday matches up. Yalden is already a player who's been loan listed, I guess, but at the age of 22, he's unlikely to actually become a first division. I guess you could give him, try and trust him, I suppose. So move him to the under-19s as well. Nicholas, under-19s. I know we're kind of depleting our squad, but if they're not ready for the first division, it kind of just doesn't make sense to keep them there unless you're short on numbers. And so we'll have a look at that in just a second. But one of the first things we can do is get rid of these players. Alright, I think we'll be coming up finally to the players. Alright, so I think we're finally here. There you go. And as you can see, suddenly our squad is massively short. Well, not massively, I suppose it's just 2 players, but yeah, a lot lower than before. So Omar Toprak is your player for now, it seems, but he will be moving on to Dortmund in January, apparently. No, not January, next year. Alright, so that's not bad, at least you're gone for a year. Anyways, next thing I do is sort out the players by their ability and try and find the best 11 players at the club and make a formation out of them, basically, a tactic out of them. So we've got Karim Bellarabi as a winger, we've got Leno as a goalkeeper, Campbell central midfielder, attacking midfielder, Charles central midfielder and defensive midfielder, Javier Hernandez, of course, the well-known striker, Lars Bender, defensive midfielder and central midfielder, Julian, a defensive midfielder as well, Jonathan Tah, centre-back, Julian Brandt, winger, Kevin Volland, striker, possibly winger as well, and Omar Toprak, of course, that we mentioned before, as centre-back. So just by having a look at this, it looks like we can take this team in different directions. And I would say you could, possession-wise anyways, you've got a ton of midfielders, you've got wingers as well, so you could do 2 different formations, but the one I'm going to go with is the 4-4-2 diamond. Now, I think because you do have wingers capable of basically playing as wingers, you could also do the 4-3-3 if you wanted. It depends on whether you want to bring the best out of your strikers and midfielders or whether you want to bring the best out of your wingers. But I would say Bellarabi's a winger, but you could probably retrain him to be a striker. He does have decent finishing, acceleration, pace, that type of thing. Or possibly even as an attacking midfielder, but not so much an advanced playmaker. You know what, actually it would make more sense to play the 4-3-3, otherwise we'd be losing out on our wingers who seem to be the best at the club. Alright, so never mind, we'll actually do the 4-3-3, I set it up. So that's going to be the possession-based tactic, and now we need to try and find a way where we can play direct style of play. So it seems that just a regular flat 4-4-2 is the one that seems to make the most sense. We've got 2 strikers here, you've got wingers, you've got central midfielders. Of course, some of them are going to be unhappy because they won't be able to play. But yeah, in a 4-4-2, you would be getting the best out of Javier Hernandez because, he's not too much of a complete forward on support. If you play a 4-3-3 and Hernandez won't, he can't really play that support role. He's more of a finisher, a poacher, as it says here, advanced forward type of player. It's actually more of a poacher. But yeah, we'll get into just who to play where and who to keep, who to sell and whatnot. But for now, these are the 2 tactics we'll go with. So let's sort out the mentalities, instructions and whatnot. So for a possession-based tactic, without a doubt, counter, standard and control are your mentalities to go to. Of course, the more attacking of them is control, and the least attacking or the little bit more defensive one is counter, and standard has a nice little balance. So any 3 you can really use for possession-based tactics, but of course, please do not think that you cannot use any of these other extremes here, contain, defensive, attacking or overload. You definitely can. In some cases you would need to go attacking or overload when you need to get a winner. Some cases you need to shut the game down by going defensive or contain. It's just that these 3 seem to suit the most, and it would make sense to train your players for the 4-3-3 in the counter, standard and control for each 3 tactics. But anyways, that's just my opinion. For the sake of the video, we'll go with more attacking one. Control is the best one for possession based as well, even though you can keep possession with counter and control and standard, sorry. And the way I set my instructions up is really basic. I like to keep 3 to 5 instructions. Lower tempo, shorter passing, be more expressive and roam from positions are probably my go-to tactical instructions. But there's a lot more you can do with trying to keep possession, without a doubt. So if you are the type of manager who likes to be very detailed, you can get rid of being more expressive, because your players will tend to lose possession a little bit more, because they're trying things that they wouldn't normally try. For example, retain possession is the easiest way to retain possession, of course. Playing out defense is another way. Working the ball into box is great. Looking for overlap is a decent way too as well. It's not exactly necessary, but it's a decent shout for possession based. Playing a higher line as well as closing down more, even possibly much more, but just bear in mind much more means that you would lose your team shape, as it says here. I would say more is a bit more useful actually. But yeah, if you play a higher line, that means you're trying to win possession back even more. Tighter marking you could possibly do, as well as get stuck in. If you want to maintain possession, another way of doing that is actually winning back possession. You can also close down your opposition's short goalkeeper distribution. If they're playing it to their centre backs, if you try and prevent that, then that means you're closing down even further. And another thing you could do is with your width. So if you play narrow, or even fairly narrow, that means your players are closer together. That way they keep things ticking over quite easily, and possession can be maintained. So anyways, let's clear all of that. We're just going to stick to my instructions for the sake of this video again. So just lower tempo, shorter passing, be more expressive, and roam for positions is my go-to. With a 4-4-2, your direct style of play, the best ones are counter and attacking. What I normally do is, because you've got 3 slots here, I would do 1 counter, 1 attacking, and the final one I would actually play a 4-2-4, push up my wingers, and that's pretty much just saved for the occasions where I really need a winner. But yeah, again, personal preferences, up to you to do what you need to do to win, really. So counter and attacking are your best mentalities to go for direct style play, but like I always said, or like I just said actually, you can use any of these mentalities. Don't think you're just limited to those 2. It's really about how you like to play. So anyways, we'll be doing attacking, and instructions is pretty much kind of the opposite of the possession based. We'll be playing a higher tempo, more direct passing, being more expressive, and room from positions are still my instructions that I like, giving creative freedom and freedom of movement to my players. But again, you can use a lot more instructions. So if you get rid of roam from positions, you can run at defense, pass in space, hit early crosses. All of those are great shouts for taking your opposition on and playing directly at them. Clearing ball to flanks, I love if you're playing wingers in a direct style of play. You can even shoot on sight if you're kind of crazy, but again, you can probably save that instruction for the end, last 10 minutes of the game or so, when you really need to win. In terms of your defensive line and whatnot, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but you can play a slightly deeper or even deeper line and close down less. That way you draw the opposition in towards you and you can hit them onto counter. That way you're passing into space and hit early crosses are instructions that actually become useful. You can also stay on feet, and that way you keep your defensive shape a little bit more. Your width naturally goes wider when you're playing higher tempos and more direct passing. But you can of course go all the way wide and unlock opposition defenders even more. I'd just like to mention, sometimes when you are playing a direct style of play, it kind of makes sense to leave it on mixed, because you're already going all out in terms of tempo and your mentality is naturally, at a higher tempo. So sometimes when you play more direct passing and, for example, a target man, your players are just knocking it up forward to your target man. It's really just hoof football. So if you're okay with hoof football, great. If you've got a target man who's doing all the work, great again. Just bear in mind, sometimes playing on mixed directness, passing directness, can actually be a little bit helpful. Just see what works for you, Reen. Again, we're going to do what I like to do. And there you go. Alright. In terms of the roles, the player roles, I don't think I really set any personal instructions. That's just unless I notice a certain player is doing something over and over. But yeah, the player roles we'll get into just a second when we get to know our players a little bit more. So let's see who to keep and who to sell, and go through the players one by one. So in terms of numbers, it looks like you're definitely short in the goalkeeper department. You've got Leno, who's a great goalkeeper, leading player for the division, and with Helmut having a judgment ability of 17, he's pretty much close to being perfect. So I would assume he's right, that we can actually trust his judgment. So yeah, you should look into getting a backup goalkeeper. The one that we sent to the under-19s, he is 32. He's probably okay to play, but he's only a good player for second division side, so you're probably better off selling him and bring in someone else. Well, 1.2 million, you can maybe do some damage. I don't think you pretty much don't have a transfer budget by the looks of it, to be honest. That actually is a bit of a concern, which would make sense why some of the players were there just for the sake of of numbers, basically. But I would try and avoid using those players as much as possible, just because they're not ready for the division, so it's unlikely they'll put any type of good performance in. You know, you're lacking the quality, I suppose. In your fullbacks department, looks like you could do with some additions. It looks like even though you just need 2 more players to have a squad of 22 like I recommend, it seems that you're a little bit, you know, your balance of the team is a little bit more in midfield, and your wingers, I think you've got probably too many of them. So if you sell some of them, you can actually probably reinvest it in your goalkeepers and fullbacks. So you definitely need a right back and a left back. You've only got one of each, Benjamin and Wendell, both players who are youngsters with potential. So you know, keep an eye out on both of them. If they don't fulfill the potential of being leading players for the division, then it would make sense to move them on. We are supposed to be a leading team in the division. We are predicted 3rd place, but we want to really try and push and break that barrier of becoming just a Champions League team and becoming a, you know, Bundesliga winner, isn't it? That's the whole point, to try and win. So yeah, just keep an eye on both. If you are bringing in fullbacks, you can bring in 2 youngsters for either one, you know, for either fullback position, and you know, just let them compete with Benjamin and Wendell. Just make sure the youngsters are ready for the 1st division when you bring them in. Another option is to just bring in a decent experienced backup, someone in maybe their prime, in their 27 years of age or something, and just good player for the division. If you can find leading, that's great. I normally recommend leading, but because fullbacks are an area where I think the quality really lacks, a lot of players, you know, a lot of fullbacks at least, are just good players for the division. It's the world-class ones and the leading and star player ones are very, very expensive, so it's unlikely that you'll be able to find any, and especially because you know, haven't got a single bit of money. You could probably try and loan some players in, to be honest. But anyways, in centre back, at least it looks like you're sorted in terms of number. Alexander Drogovic is a ball-playing defender. He's a good player for most division sides. He looks like he'll be one of your starters. Omar Toprak is another good player, and Jonathan Tah is a player with potential. Again, same with Tin Jedevec, I would assume that's how you say his name. But yeah, the point is, you've got the numbers. It's all about trying to improve on quality. Hopefully both Tin and Tah can become leading players. Drogovic and Toprak are players who are good, without doubt. I mean, you know, that's what it says. But you would want to try and break that barrier and bring in leading centre-backs if possible. But again, you're very short on numbers, so it's a bit dangerous to play that game. In terms of central midfielders, it looks like you're set as it looks here. So if you're playing the 4-3-3, you need 4. You need 2 defensive midfielders and 4 central midfielders. I would assume Hakan can play as a central midfielder as well. Apparently he's also a striker, not central midfielder. I think you can retrain him though. It's unlikely any of these wingers can play as central midfielders, so otherwise you'd be short in midfield. So, and you know, you don't have players for him. So again, I think you can retrain him there. So if we just assume these are our central midfielders, then you're perfect. But if you are playing the 4-4-2, too many central midfielders, you only need 4, and it would make sense to get rid of some of them. Of course, a lot of these midfielders look quality, so this team maybe suits a 4-3-3 a bit more. I suppose you just wouldn't be getting the best out of Hernandez, so you know, it's a tough decision to make, but you do have to pick a style of play and what type of players to keep. So anyways, Julian's a good player for the division. It looks like he won't be improving anymore. Lars Bender, a good player for the division only. Charles is leading. Campbell leading as well, so those are your starting players without doubt. And Kai Havertz is a youngster with potential. Again, keep an eye on his potential. If he does become leading, great. If he doesn't, sell him and move on. And Hakan, of course, a good player. Again, same advice. If he becomes leading, great. If he doesn't, sell him and move on. And it looks like you're pretty sorted. You've got a nice little balance between, you know, experience and youngsters. The only issue is, of course, that your experienced players, some of them are only good players for the division rather than leading. I think defensive midfielder is another position where it's a bit tough to get leading or star or even world-class players in. So, you know, scout before you try and sell your own players. Scout and see if there's anyone that's realistically available to bring in before you try and sell your players. Of course, I recommend that for all of the positions, really. But yeah, if you're playing the 4-4-2, then that means you've got too many numbers. Hakan can play as a striker, so you can you know, remove him from this group. But if you do have 5, I would say sell one of them. And obviously, it seems to make sense to try and sell one of the players who only have good ability in the division, for the division, rather than leading. And that way you can bring in some decent money. So Julian's not exactly liked by the fans as much as Bender, even though Bender's on higher wages. But yeah, Julian's probably the one that you could probably sell. Then again, maybe not. You just bought him in, so it's unlikely teams will go in for him. His value's really increased, so maybe you'd be looking at selling Bender, but that is a very tough decision, of course. 15 million though, you could probably bring in someone else that's better. In terms of your wingers though, Karim Bellarabi, Leon Bailey, Admir Mehmendi and Julian Brandt, you're pretty much sorted by the looks of it. A lot of these players can play on both wings, so it depends on how you want to play them and where you think they're best, whether wingers or inside forwards, without a doubt. Bellarabi, leading player, I think he's a German international, there you go, 10 caps. Leon Bailey, the one with potential. Mehmedi, another player with a good player for most division sides, so that's why you can see why Leverkusen are, you know, just expected to be well, the board anyway is expecting to just qualify for Euros. You're a little bit short in numbers, and some of your players are good, some of them are leading, so it's just trying to weed out the good players and bring in more leading players. Julian Brandt, a youngster with potential, but also one of your best wingers, apparently better than Bellarabi in the left, attacking midfielder left position. So, you know, he's a youngster with potential who's also a ready first teamer as well at the same time. So, you know, keep an eye on him. He should, I think he's maybe a wonder kid. Yeah, he is. Alright, and so you got the numbers there at least. 4 players, that's pretty much perfect. Whether you're playing the 4-4-2 or the 4-3-3, you need 4 wingers, so that's great. And again, like I said, in the striker department, if you're playing a 4-3-3, you only need 2 strikers. If you're playing a 4-4-2, you would need 4, and that's where Hakan comes in. Stefan Kibling, I guess, I forgot how to say his name, but anyways, he's a good player for most division sides. Not sure how long he's injured for, 7 weeks, 3 months, not too bad. Javier Hernandez is leading. I'd assume he is your star striker, and Kevin Volland is leading as well. So you've got a nice little competition there between the two. Volland's still technically a youngster with potential, but he is expected to be a first teamer. I guess he could play on the wing as well. I'm never really comfortable playing a Rodamantur inside forward, maybe a little bit better. Can do the inside forward role as well. But maybe try and look to play him as a striker. He does a complete forward support role quite well. So I would say, now we've got better understanding of our players, we can sort out their roles. And the 4-3-3, it looks like Javier Hernandez would be the one to kind of go. You would make a huge profit on him, to be fair. But it would be disappointing to lose such a great player at the same time. It's just because he doesn't play the support role well at all. At least Stefan Kibling, even though he is a target man, that doesn't suit possession. You know, we won't be using him as a target man if we're playing a possession-based tactic. But at least he can do the support role a little bit well. Then again, I am pretty much mistaken. I think he only does a good target man support. Maybe a deep flank forward? I suppose you'd be forcing a bit, but he'd still be better than Javier Hernandez. So my recommendation would be Bellarabi as a complete forward on support. If you can play him as a false 9, even better, because that's what you eventually want to work up to, because false 9s are amazing for your possession-based side. But yeah, I think he can do complete forward on support a little bit better than you can do false 9. I would recommend trying either one and seeing where he performs a bit better. But for me, he seems to have the attributes of a complete forward on support. Your wingers, it really depends on how you want to play them, because you do have inside forwards, but you've got, you know, 3 left midfielders. I suppose, yeah, if we play Leon Bailey as a right winger, Bellarabi's still a winger in essence. He can play as an inside forward, but that would mean shifting him to the other side. Of course, he's bad at decision making and composure, so maybe keep him as a winger. Basically, you've got options. You can play him as wingers or inside forwards, and you can pretty much just play people where they are comfortable. My recommendation, though, I like is the inside forwards. Especially when you're playing a false nine, it's great because the false nine drops into the space. Inside forwards are close to him, and they do make runs beyond him, and that way he can find them. But again, the winger does just as good a job. It just depends on how you like to see your players. So the normal makeup is an advanced playmaker on attack. We saw a lot of the players in midfield can play that role quite comfortably. Advanced playmaker on attack would go with the inside forward on attack. So if you decide to play an attack duty here instead on the left wing, then that would mean, you know, an inside forward on support here. That means you have to move the advanced playmaker on attack here. But again, it's just who you seem to trust on that role a bit more. Let's leave it as is there. It would mean that you'd have to play wing backs if you're playing inside forwards, and this is how it should look. If you're playing wingers, though, switch them to full backs without doubt. It just, you know, complements them a little bit more. You have centre backs who seem comfortable playing as ball playing defenders. We have to look at if they actually can do that. It doesn't have too much vision, but he does have passing technique and whatnot. Omar is a central defender through and through. Alexander, no vision. Tin, no vision. Tar, decent vision. I suppose, I mean, 10 and 11, there's only a small difference, and you know, you don't have to have too much vision as a ball-playing defender, but they do have passing for it. So we could make use of that and play one ball-playing defender, and the other should be a central defender. Now, I love the anchorman role, and I like to complement this midfield with a ball-winning midfielder on support. It seems to be the best makeup, but I think our players are more suited to defensive midfielder here, and possibly a deep line playmaker on support. But I think you want to eventually work to the roles that we mentioned. So let's have a look at the defensive midfielders once more. Julian and Bender are both comfortable as defensive midfielders a little bit more. I think you can play one of them as a ball-winning midfielder if you wanted to, but your actual central midfielders are more deep line playmakers without doubt. I guess box-to-box midfielders is a decent shout for Charles. I would lean to that more than I would the deep line playmaker on support role, because, you know, it's a bit too defensive for 4-3-3. You already have, you know, a defensive midfielder or an anchor man holding your team down, so you just need someone to get forward. Campbell, I think I'd be tempted to play him as roaming playmaker instead. Kai, how are you doing, Kai? Probably roaming playmaker as well. So, yeah, I would say roaming playmaker on support is your best bet. Play the two defensive midfielders here. I mean, just the one, but I mean, the two players capable of playing in defensive mid. You just play one of them here. You got roaming playmaker and you got advanced playmaker, and that's a decent team, or a decent balance, I guess, to the makeup. So there you go. That's our 4-3-3 sorted. Duty sorted. I think where you've got the most variation or flexibility is on your wings. Depends on how you want to play them. The 4-4-2 is going to look a little bit more different. This is where Stefan's going to come in, you know, in handy a lot. You want to play Bellarabi though and Hernandez together, and that way we would need to play the complete forward on support and a poacher role. A poacher's perfect for direct style of play. He'll do nothing but get you goals. But when you do play Keebling, play him as a target man. It is his perfect, you know, his preferred role. He does it much better than any other role he does. It's pretty much his only role that he can do, and it would suit a direct style play as well. So just consider that. As for Hakan though, we can have a quick look at Hakan once more. But I think he'll be okay as a complete forward on support, wouldn't he? He's a decent false nine actually, and a complete forward on support. Maybe not so much, but it is the only striker role. You might, if you want, you could obviously sell him. He's been with you guys for a while, so he would possibly sell. And bring in another actual striker, a target man on support, maybe, for example. But again, just about preferences. But we're going to be playing, I forgot his name, Bellarabi, is it? Well, Bellarabi is a striker. Bellarabi is a winger, isn't he? Yeah, we're going to be playing, I've been saying Bellarabi the whole time. We're actually going to be playing Volland and Hernandez together. So that would mean a complete forward on support with a poacher. Seems to suit this team a bit best. We have to play wingers without doubt, so you want the winger on attack to be on the same side as the poacher and the winger on support the same side as the supporting target man, and your fullbacks have to complement them. Fullback on support here, fullback on attack here. You can still play a ball playing defender. You know, they don't necessarily suit possession based or attack or direct style play more, neither of them. Here they're great for countering, and in your possession base, they're just great for keeping the ball a little bit better than the central defender. So again, just preferences. So I would say the best balance is a deep line playmaker on defend with a box-to-box midfielder is what you should try and work to eventually. But your team's suited to a roaming playmaker a bit more. It makes sense to use that vision that they have a little bit better, you know, a little bit more, I suppose, than a box-to-box midfielder who doesn't really necessarily have to have vision. So yeah, roaming playmaker with the deep line playmaker, decent shout, and they should get the job done. So there you go, that's our 2 tactics sorted. I would say if you wanted to, you could possibly play the 4-4-2 diamond as your possession base, but again, it's all about preferences. But yeah, if you ask me, I wouldn't recommend it, because 4-4-2 diamond means that your fullbacks have to be world-class players, and you don't necessarily have that. You don't even have the numbers for it. But anyways, let's have a look at the youngsters for, you know, just to end the video basically. And the players who you need to look out for apparently are Mariam Prince and Chinedu Akene. They're the ones with the most potential. But again, anyone up until about here would be a decent shout. So you've got a lot of nice youngsters coming through, 7 players, that's not bad at all. You know, some of them aren't going to fulfill their potential, but some will exceed their potential, and that can happen as well with the other players. So don't rule them out, just try sending them out on loan, giving them as much experience as possible, and if you can ever squeeze them in for some game time, that would be great. But yeah, you've got players who can, you know, easily slot into your team. Of course, a goalkeeper can always do that, but if you're playing a 4-4-2 with wingers, Chinedu would definitely slot into your team. It looks like you can play a lot of different roles or positions, but yeah, I don't know, maybe try and keep him as a winger. Atakan, defensive midfielder possibly, or even deep line playmaker in a 4-4-2, he'd be great. He'll slot in as well. Ball winning midfielder is a decent shout as well. Looks like he can do a number of roles as well. You're really getting youngsters who can do a lot of different roles apparently. Centre backs, always a pleasing you know, youngsters to come through. Lucas Border, Joel and Jan can all do that without a doubt. Joel the striker, as an advanced forward, even a poacher, it looks like he can do the advanced forward role a little bit better than Javier Hernandez, but unless his decision making and passing improve, then you're better off playing him as a poacher. And that way, you know, he's all slotting in. He is already a international, but yeah, until he actually fulfills that, I guess he's still technically a youngster. He's not ready for the vision at the end of the day. But yeah, I think that will be all for today's episodes. If you did enjoy it, then please do, of course, hit the like button and subscribe for more daily Football Manager 2017 content. And as always, thank you guys for watching.